Okay, so guys, tonight we're joined by Richie. He's with Runway Recovery, and tonight he's going to share his experience with strength and hope with his own personal recovery. And Richie, we're so glad that you're giving us your time tonight, and we look forward to hearing your story. And we just appreciate you being here with us tonight. And so,
Thank you
with
for
that,
that.
I'm just going to absolutely, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you, and we are here ready to listen.
Yeah, so I'll start a little bit with my story. And originally, I'm not from California. Born and raised in New Jersey, in a little town called Clark. Uh, Basically, kind of like leading up to my addiction. I wouldn't say I had a good childhood. I was raised well, but there's definitely some obstacles along the way. Unfortunately, both my parents are victims of this disease as well, right? Alcoholics and drug addicts. And my father had left me when I was young and like 3, 4 years old, maybe even younger. But so I found myself um, in a drug house, more or less, with my mom. And then by the grace of God, my grandma kind of saved me. She pulled me out of that house and she ended up gaining custody of me and raised me with my grandfather, who I absolutely adored. And then I'll never forget, things were going pretty good. Like they were doing their best to shield me from my mom's addiction and the episodes she would have. Uh, I still have some recollection from when I was really little, but when my grandfather was around, you know, it was a lot easier on them. But then May 17th of 2003, uh, I actually walked in on a, it was I was getting ready for Little League baseball, and I walked in, and my grandfather was there on the floor, and he had suffered a heart attack. Luckily, that for me, my piece is that morning right before I had left the room to go get ready, he was still, alive and well, and he was still in bed. And I said, I love you. I'm gonna go get ready with grandma real quick for baseball. And then in the matter of 20, 30 minutes, he had that heart attack, and me and my grandmother walked in on that. And that was definitely very traumatizing for me. At the time, I didn't realize it. I didn't really realize it until in my adulthood. Um, but then fast forward, I go through my youth, and like my mom's addiction was pretty bad. And then her episodes with drugs, alcohol, and men. Of course, at the time you don't realize how it affects you, but it definitely did. Her being in and out of my life, using drugs and drinking, and just causing like kind of chaos. So then I'm going through though. My grandma's doing a fantastic job, the best she can, giving me everything I could ever want. And I get into high school, and pretty good town, like middle class town. So every kid has like a pretty good household except me, where I was raised by my grandma. Everyone else's parents were in their lives, and it was just a little difficult for me. I mean, I remember having kids ask me, "Oh, why isn't your dad at the baseball game today?" And I had like no answer for them. But then like I started smoking weed, with my buddies, and started drinking, and it was all in good fun. We were do it on the weekends, whatever. I was doing good in school, always a good student, so it didn't like no alarms were raised or anything. But fast forward senior year of high school, start dabbling with like cocaine and Xanax a little bit. Um, still like at like a party scene, not like doing drugs by myself. Um, but then what happened was I decided to go to community college, and a lot of people, went away for school. And school, like I said, came pretty easy for me. So with that, like community college was like a piece of cake. Um, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And I found myself by the time I was like 19, 19 and a half years old, um, starting off with pills and then eventually doing heroin and smoking crack. And it all happened so fast. I mean, to think that just a year or two before that, I had just graduated high school, had high hopes for myself. And now I find myself in like the slums of Newark, New Jersey, smoking crack and sniffing heroin. Um, I end up, doing that. I go to a couple treatment centers, and I'm kind of doing that run around, and a key point in this, and this will come back later on in my story, was my best friend growing up, who I was using with at first. His brother had died in his sleep, not drug related, it was something else, and that resulted in him quickly spiraling, and he ended up going into treatment in Philadelphia, went there, relapsed, and then he came out to California. So he went through a program called Treehouse Recovery, and he's been sober ever since. And meanwhile, my life is still getting progressively worse, and me and him are staying in contact. And my using's increasing. Eventually, I begin using heroin IV, heroin, fentanyl, whatever you want to call it now. And my drug addiction is really bad. It's completely, running my life, ruining my life. I'm destroying my relationship with my family, and I'm not even who I once was at all. And I am now, 24 years old, and I've been through countless rehabs. Nothing's worked. I've overdosed, totaled cars. I don't have a dollar to my name, and it was one morning um, I was super, super high, and I fell down these steps, and I went through the wall, and I was fine somehow. But I called my job to call out, and they knew something was up. And I guess I sounded, pretty messed up on the phone. They said, "Listen, Richie, like, we love you, but we can't have this anymore. You got to go get help." And then a couple weeks goes by, and I finally found myself in a detox. And I had talked to my friend Charlie, who I was speaking of before, and said, "Listen, like, I'm ready to do this. Whatever it takes, I'm going to go into this detox. Can we please get it set up? I want to come to California. I want to go through Treehouse, and I want to do this. I want to change my life." So he says, "Okay, I'm going to talk to some people," and I go into this detox, pretty good place in New Jersey. Like, it's called Discovery. Nothing special, but it did the job. So I kind of stabilized there for 3 weeks. In the meantime, my grandmother in Treehouse and all the logistics were kind of sorted out. And sure enough, it was actually April 27th of 2022 that I had the flight ready to go to come out to California. And so I get out of the detox. I'm a couple weeks sober now. My sober day is April 5th of 2022, incidentally. And now I'm out in California, and I'm ready to go in this program. I get picked up from LAX, and super excited. I'm about to see my best friend, who I haven't seen in like 6 years. Um, or at that time it was 4, sorry. And so I get there, and immediately when I get there, I felt relieved. I was like, all right, I have a shot. If I do the right thing and start like changing some things, I have a shot. And I go through Treehouse, and it's a great program, and I really just kind of soak it all in. And I was truly committed to changing myself, which I think is like the biggest thing. Is I see it working in this field now, and then just between AA and just my entire life being around addicts and alcoholics. Um, if you don't want to do it for yourself, it doesn't matter how much somebody wants it for you. It's not going to change. And I wanted it, so I go through the program, and I graduate, and I had a great time there, and now I'm transitioning back into life. Get myself a little part-time job at a restaurant, um, living at the sober living, kind of just like staying in that community, staying super close to that community. And then I end up graduating. I mean, not graduating, coming up on my year sober, and I have a trip planned to go home for the first time to see my family. I'm getting to go see my cousin graduate college, which was amazing. And somewhere in that time, so now it's 2023, May of 2023, I'm like, it's time to start progressing in my life, and uh, making making some, big life decisions. So I write down on a piece of paper some goals I want to accomplish. Um, those goals include, buying myself a car, getting back enrolled into school, finding a new job, and getting a new apartment, an apartment for myself. Um, and the beautiful thing about that is all those goals are accomplished, but in the fashion they were accomplished was truly amazing. Sure enough, my best friend is looking for a new roommate, the one who got me out here in the first place, and the timing couldn't have worked out any better. And now me and him live in an apartment together. Uh, I get the new car, and I'm enrolled in school, and now I'm looking for a new job, and I can't decide what I want to do. And I talked to my buddy who actually was on this as well, Cyrus Cummins, and he said, why don't you come work at Runway? And I said, you know what, man, like, sounds like a good idea. What's that look like? How can I make that happen? So he helps set up an interview. I bring my application in, I get the interview, and they end up hiring me. And so now I'm going through school and I start working here, and it's been so amazing and rewarding because my days are super busy throughout the week, but super fulfilling, right? Like in the morning, I go to class and I get to like kind of, I'm learning, I'm networking over at school and doing something very good for myself, which of course feels great. But then after school, I get to come here and help others. And it's truly, the working in this field, I can't even put it to words, but it's just super fulfilling for me. And it's definitely where I belong right now. And it's amazing because it's years in the making for me to end up working in this field. And will I be in it forever? I'm not sure, right? I just take it one day at a time. But I know right now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I feel I've been able to help a lot of people. And throughout the way, like you get to see, you know, men and women who come through here and you hear who are still doing well afterwards. And it's truly amazing. And it's like, that's why we do what we do. A little bit about Runway. I mean, I think what makes this place special is, well, first of all, I all the detoxes I went through in New Jersey were like state-run facilities. So when I got here and started working here, I was like, wow, this is the uh, most beautiful place I've ever seen, and it truly is. We're smaller, but I think that's what makes it special. The word I like to describe it here is like it's cozy. Like you feel like you're home. The clients are definitely supported right from the second they walk in, and even after they leave. And I think that's like the what separates us from many treatment centers is the client care that we provide, and this we stay in touch after we check in. Like we are, we have clients who call here often to just say hi. And I know from my experience in other treatment centers I went through back in New Jersey, I had no desire to call any of them back. So I think that speaks testament to the kind of work that's being done here. Um, but now, I mean, what my life looks like and how my days are, it's like, I go to school, I go to work, and then on the weekends I do my meetings. I have a sponsor. I do I do the deal, right? I do what it takes to stay sober. And of course, some days are better than others, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's worth it. It really is, because the life I live today truly is a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I'm extremely grateful for moving out here. Uh, who I never thought I would leave New Jersey and move to California, but here I am. And don't get me wrong, I visit quite frequently. I have a trip planned for next month to go see my family, um, all who are super proud of me, and my grandma, of course, who I can't say enough good things about, um, and my cousins, my aunt, my uncle, and my mom still, like, who's doing much better, still has her own struggles, but I still adore her, right? She's my mother, and at the end of the day, like, I love her to death. And the thing is, now I say to myself, and this helped me come to peace in terms with my childhood and my relationship I had with my mom, was I had to go through this addiction in order to forgive my mother and father. Um, because I never truly understood why they did the things they did, right? But now I can, right? I understand why, my mom wouldn't show up on Christmas Eve night to give me gifts and be there with the family, because that's how powerful this disease is, right? Once it gets a hold of you and that phenomena of craving kicks in, it doesn't matter what is going on in your life. You're going to choose that over anything. And I found myself doing the same thing in the depths of my addiction. So, it's been a wonderful thing to kind of come to terms with that. Um, but I mean, all in all, if I were to like sum up recovery or my journey in a few words, I mean, it would be, the service, right? Service work, community, fellowship, and then just recovery, right? On a daily basis. What am I doing every day? How am I being 1% better every single day? Because the second I stop working on myself and doing for others, that's when I'm in deep trouble. Because why would I stop that, right? That's what's got me to this point. So I'm not going to stop something that's been working so well for me. Um, but yeah, I mean that's really all I have. That's my experience and what I've done to get where I am today and how I've managed to stay sober for 2 years. I'm open to answer any questions. Thank you.
Well, Richie, congratulations. Thank you. That's a great story. I mean, it sounds like, and it is a lot that you've been through, from a very early age. And just, sharing that with us is so important. And, we do have these events quite often. And, of course, Treehouse, we know there's such a great success and really help a tremendous amount of people. And every time we come to an event and we listen to a story like yours, it helps us make it to the next level because I know for me, speaking just for me, I know we come out of these and we feel there is hope, right? It can be done. It's possible. There's hope. And then as soon as things go south a little bit or a lot, you
Sure.
think you lose your hope, right? And so then we come back and we hear another great success story, and it just keeps us hopeful from time to time. So we appreciate that. So for those of you guys, if you think of a question, just type it in the chat box. And so I wanted to, while we get those going, if they do have some, Richie. So you had said that you were doing, by the age of 19, you were doing pills, heroin, and crack, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then it took you to 20 till you were 24 to go
So
into
I
recovery?
to get in recovery. Yes. So I flew out here April 27th, right, of 2022. So
Hmm.
my birthday's May 24th. Um,
Hmm.
so I was 24, about to be 25. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's so you were pretty hard at it for about 5 years, right?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I know you told the story of your grandpa, and I can imagine that being very traumatic. And thinking of my own kids and how close they are with their grandparents. And me being a grandparent now is extra special because I have a son that's an addict, and he has a son, and so to be there for my grandson kind of equates to a lot with what your grandmother did with you, right?
Yeah.
Trying to do that. And so, you mentioned that you're still really close with your grandma when you come home from visits, right? You still see her quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk to her every day on the phone.
Okay.
I
Okay.
call her
And
every single.
what about your mom though? You said you touched on that you understand the things better and that she's making some progress and you understand it better, but do y'all talk regularly, or do you have any I know you've worked through a lot of this in recovery, but do you have any resentments towards your mom?
No, not at all. I really don't. Because she's sick, right? She was a sick person and probably still is a little bit, right? And
Right.
I understand that, and at the end of the day, I know that if push comes to shove, she would do anything she can for me,
Oh
and
yeah.
she wishes she could have probably been a better mother,
Mhm.
but unfortunately, she wasn't able to do everything she wanted to.
Hmm.
And but yeah, we still talk. Not as I text her more. You know, I don't. We talk on the phone every now and then, and I think with her, she kind of understands too that I need that healthy space, right? Those healthy
Right.
boundaries. And she's obviously super proud of me and super supportive and understands that.
Absolutely. And so, coming from your background story, so, speaking in terms of genetics, and we hear a lot about this, that addiction can be hereditary. Um, a lot of times it's not. But since you had both sides of that, what is your take on how you got to the point where you were using? Do you feel it was a combination of being around it when you were little, or
Mm,
a combination of that with having parents that were addicted? What's your
right.
thought process on that?
Yeah. Right. That's like the age old question, nature versus nurture. So it depends, right? A lot of people would say I had the odds stacked against me, right? And it was almost like only a matter of time before addiction found its way in my life. Um, it's really hard to say, and I think it's I don't know if you ever heard of, I can't think of their name, but there was a these triplets, right, that were separated at birth. Oddly enough, they ended up being raised pretty close to one another, but didn't know of each other later on into life. And they ended up doing a lot of the similar things, right? They were into like the same things, and they never seen each other a day in their life aside from like when they were born,
Right.
and but so I do think there is definitely some nature into it, and but I also do think being around it, right? The being around the addiction, and like I said, my grandma did her absolute best to shield me from it,
Oh,
but
sure.
she could only do so much. So do I think that maybe being around my mom and the shenanigans she was pulling played a factor into me finding drugs and alcohol? Probably. Um, but you know what, Terry? I don't think there's a definitive answer for that. I really
Right.
don't. I really think because you hear, look, my mom is a, and there's addiction that runs in our family, right? Has her issues, and her sister, my aunt, is straight as an arrow, right?
Right.
Has never. I think I've seen her drink maybe like 5 glasses of wine in my entire life.
Right.
So go figure. And they were raised in the exact same household. And it's funny, like it's also, your perception is your reality.
Yep.
So if you were to add, like my grandmother, both her parents were immigrants from Germany and Poland, right? If you were to ask her sisters, who God rest their souls are both dead, were also addicts and alcoholics, right? Her sisters were. My grandma, of course, was not. If you were to ask her sister, how was your childhood? They would say, oh, horrible. And they'd give all these reasons as to why. But if you
Mm.
were to ask my grandmother, she would say they had a great childhood, you
Right.
know? So I mean, after with those kind of things taken into consideration, I think it is case by case,
It
and
is.
really, it's the perception is your reality.
Absolutely. And opinions too. And
Yeah,
and I know that that equates to a lot of us here in this group tonight, because like I have two children, and my daughter, same household, same situation, same circumstances, and it does make you wonder, right? You didn't have that anything different, so then it becomes, in my mind, is it because you have that tendency to be an addictive personality, I guess, and you tried the same thing I tried, but you can't stop, and I can,
yeah,
right? So that makes perfect sense.
yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, Cami says your story is amazing. I too am raising my grandchild due to his parents' addiction. I worry every single day about how his life will turn out. He is 16. Keep spreading hope.
Thank you.
So, and then Madeline says, is there anything you would say to an addict who is torn between using and getting sober? Or is there no in between? Either they want it or they don't.
Um, I mean, I'm a firm believer. Either they want it or they don't. But if to that addict, if I were to say something is, you know, if you're even thinking about being sober, right? If that's crossing your mind, chances are your life isn't too great, right? If you think there's a problem, there probably is. So at this point, give sobriety a chance, and you know what? Get a year sober, and if your life is worse, then go back to it.
Mm,
But I say that in confidence because I know your life won't be worse in a year after sobriety.
right. Absolutely. Okay. And it kind of rings something I had said to Sue or somebody the other day. I heard on a commercial or something, and the guy actually said that becoming sober wasn't nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
And so that kind of sticks in the back of my mind. I never thought of it that way either, right? With my son, and there's got to be some fear there because he doesn't know how to live sober, but he knows how to live, using drugs. So that's
Yeah.
understandable. Okay, Sharon says, can you talk more about how losing your grandfather and how that affected you? As far as I'm assuming she means towards addiction. Did it affect your addiction, you think? Because you were
Um.
young.
Yeah, I was super young. So you know what? And yes, I mean, I think a big part of what like kind of led me down that slippery slope was me quitting all sports. Freshman year came around and I played baseball, basketball, football, and not even that I was that good, but I love the sports to this day, but I enjoyed playing in like that camaraderie of being on teams. And I do think, maybe if my grandfather was still around, would he have maybe pushed me to keep playing? I don't know. Maybe. I think he would have because he wanted me to play baseball when I was a kid. Not in an overbearing way, but I would have never liked sports the way I do. I don't think unless it was for him. And so I'm sure that played a role. And then also, I lacking like that kind of that male figure in my life initially. But I will say I have my mom's sister, her husband Kevin has been great to me, and he was like the closest thing I have to a father figure, and has taught me a lot and has been super super supportive towards me. So, and if you know what, if I'm being honest, like there's a lot of fingers I could point if I wanted to, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it was me, right? Nobody put the drug in front of my face and said you got to do this right now. So,
Right. Right. Absolutely. Get out of that denial, that's for sure.
yeah,
Okay. Well, Madeline just had a comment back to your answer to her about choosing if they want it or don't want it. She just said, thank you. He's been living on the streets for 4 years and he seems okay with it.
right.
So, yeah, that's pretty typical, I think, in some cases. So, okay. Well, Richie, thank you so much for being here. And you really were an inspiration. And what a great story. And congratulations to
Thank
you.
you.
And keep going strong and just keep doing what you do. I know you're helping a lot of other people. And I think coming from somebody who's with your background, and which is what Treehouse Recovery does, is bring people in that can help other people because they've lived it. I truly believe that's some of the reason the things didn't work for my son that were offered to him is they weren't being taught by people that had lived it. And so
Right.
I think it's just wonderful how you can do that. One last question, then I'm going to let you go. Are you an artist?
An artist? No.
Yes.
Oh, you're looking at that
Uh-huh.
the artwork behind me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm at work at Runway right now, and we just those are all like former clients' artwork.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I can't see them too close, but they look very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Richie. We certainly appreciate you giving us your time tonight. We thank you again.
Of course, I appreciate it and thank you for having me.
Of course.